I'm LISAEVERS, and this is Street Soldiers.
Fox 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with LISAEVERS.
From bullying to acts of violence, school security is a critical issue. So where do we draw the line between keeping students safe and making them feel like criminals? Realizing their full potential is difficult for some of the city's more than 1 million students when fears of violence are on their minds. Hundreds of deadly weapons like these guns and vicious-looking knives are confiscated by school safety agents every year, and that's at schools that have metal detectors, which are less than 10% of the total, says school safety union head Gregory FLOYD.
What worries me the most is we do not know what the children are bringing into schools. We don't know which children are being bullied, which children are bringing in weapons. We have no clue. And this always leads to disastrous consequences.
The stabbing death of a student in a Bronx high school last year highlighted the problem. It was the first murder in a school in 15 years. There were no metal detectors, despite the requests of staff and parents. It's time to make them mandatory and install modern video surveillance in all schools, says parent SHAKIMA Davis.
Sometimes people snap, so you never really know where a person's mind state is at, and I just feel like it's always good to take those precautions to make sure that no matter what, it can alleviate any problems or any incidents happening.
A Department of Education spokesperson tells us the DOE is committed to fostering safe and supportive learning environments, and we work in lockstep with NYPD to ensure every school building is secure. We take every necessary step to ensure the safety and preparedness of our school communities. In order to get an idea of what is going on system-wide, Queens City Council member Paul Vallone is pushing for a task force.
What is the plan? Are the parents informed? Are the students aware? And has the local precinct been to the school? Is the metal detector the best plan? I don't know, but that's what this task force is all about.
There are different measures being debated. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me is Senator Jesse Hamilton. He's a New York State Senator, a Democrat from Brooklyn. He's an Education Committee member, and he's also sponsored a bill to have more social workers in the schools. Senator Hamilton, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Elise.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is SHAKIMA Davis. She's a parent of a 5th grader in the city school system and also an educator. SHAKIMA, great to have you.
Nice being here.
Thank you so much for being with us. Also joining us is Gregory FLOYD. He's the president of Teamsters Local 237. They represent the school safety agents, the ones who are entrusted by the city and by the NYPD to protect the students and keep things safe in the schools. Greg, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Greg, let me start with you on this. Give us a picture of where we stand, because there was a first murder that had happened in a city school within more than 2 decades. We saw a gun being fired in a middle school. That hasn't happened for more than a decade. What is going on?
Well, unfortunately, the policies of Mayor de Blasio have exacerbated these problems. And what I mean by that is his refusal to do an assessment to make sure that the schools that have metal detectors stay there and need metal detectors are added. So he has this philosophical debate with himself of not putting metal detectors in the schools. The second thing is, over the last 2 years, he's introduced a pilot program of warning cards, which he expanded to all high schools. What those warning cards do is, instead of arresting kids or giving them a summons, they're now giving these cards that are not reported, they're not, records aren't kept, and the parents aren't notified as to what their children are doing.
Happened, and I want to talk about that. But first, let me just start with the metal detectors, because I think most people feel like, just like everywhere we go, whether it's a sports arena, whether it's a public building, a lot of times we're not even just forget the airport. We already know that, but people are going through metal detectors. Our bags are being searched or whatever. About how many of the 1,100 schools in New York City have metal detectors?
Approximately 88 schools have metal detectors.
That's it.
That's it. 88 schools, which did not include the school that had the stabbing up in the Bronx.
Up in the Bronx. SHAKIMA, as a parent, how do you feel about the safety for your child?
I feel like it's not secure. A lot of times I'm unaware of a lot of incidents that's happening in the school until it escalates, and come to find out when I finally am notified about an incident, other things have led up to the big incident, especially when it comes to something being a physical, like something in a physical manner. like violence or assault, whether it's the child or, my child or a child hitting my child. But sometimes I don't hear things until it gets to that point, and then when I do finally ask questions or inquire, what happened, and I'm hearing, okay, this happened a week ago or this happened a month ago, and I'm trying to figure out why am I just hearing this now?
No, exactly. Senator Hamilton, this is something we've heard with some of the more troubling incidents that we've seen in the city schools. Number one, parents not really being notified early on in the process. And number two, that these incidents that the children were dealing, where there were fights, where there were tensions, that they were not taken care of or addressed properly in the beginning. What's your take on that?
We do need more transparency in the notification process. But we have to realize these are children, and children do have fights. And we shouldn't criminalize child behavior. But we need to do is to make sure that the children who have problems get the attention that they need. A psychiatrist, a psychologist, a social worker to sit down and say, hey, what's going on with your life? Are you having problems at home? Is someone bullying you? So we need to have more intervention on the front end for the children who we can identify. That's why I had the mental health bill, to find out if a child has a mental issue, how to address it, get them help, and put them back into the classroom. So we have to just keep in mind, these are still children at the end of the day. And in
Right, we're talking from grades, really from grade kindergarten up until high school. But don't most schools have school counselors or social workers?
Not enough. You might have one social worker for like 300-400 children. They just can't. One social worker for 1.5 schools. It's just not enough social workers to address the problems in certain neighborhoods that are stressful. I mean, low-income neighborhoods, kids have problems, so we have to have more social workers there. Because in the affluent neighborhoods, parents have money to spend for a private psychologist, whereas in the poor neighborhood you don't. So we have to look at it from that perspective.
Greg, in terms of the parents and the flow of information about what's really going on, you have concerns about that. Tell us about that.
Well, with the warning cards, and I keep going back to that.
And explain what those are for people.
The warning cards are a made-up system that the mayor has made up, where he doesn't record crime. And once these warning cards are issued for whatever infractions they want to issue them for, disorderly conduct, bringing marijuana to schools, the records aren't kept, and the parents are not notified. So you don't even give the parents the option of knowing what their children are doing in schools.
So wait a minute. So you're saying that if a student is involved in a physical fight where it's it's a pretty intense physical fight, if they're given a warning card.
In some instances, yes.
In some instances.
But see, the case is you don't want every child arrested for infractions.
No.
But you want records kept, maybe not official records, criminal records, but you want records kept so you can identify the problems of children, and you also want to notify the parents.
So you agree with what Shakima is saying about parents not being notified? Because we've every time we go to one of the schools after an incident, that is the number one complaint. Yes. Parents are like, this happened a week ago. Why weren't we told right away? Why weren't we told this child was in crisis? Why weren't we told this kid brought a weapon into school? And maybe not necessarily to do other students harm, but just it was in the home. Every parent should be notified as to what's going on with their child. And everybody, please feel free to jump in. Senator Hamilton, what about this notification and the parents? Because a lot of parents do feel, some of the schools are very good about it. Mm-hmm. They're engaged with the parents. They're engaged, like 234, where we did the town hall with you in Brownsville. They're very involved with the community. They have a different relationship with the local police. It's not they're not just coming there when there's a problem. But there are other schools where it's not like that, and the parents are just basically kept in the dark.
Right, I have to agree with Greg. What the mayor's policy is always to conceal and not offer information to the parents. If you have a situation, you just can't say, I'm not going to talk about it. We're not going to address the issue. And that's the problem. You have to address the root cause of the issues that are happening at the schools. And so the mayor wants to make it seem like everything is going okay in our schools, which most of the schools there are, but there are certain schools that have issues. And we're not putting the resources into those schools to make sure that, to address the behavioral issues with the children. And so I think we have to put more money, as far as social workers on board, reduce the class sizes. When people coming in the morning, say some schools, child walks in, good morning, Johnny. Good morning, Carla. How you doing today? Right. Is everything okay? Yes. In Brownsville, we have Principal Jackson. Every morning, he's in front of the school greeting the children. And it makes such a difference when you have the principal and the teachers in front of the school.
And they're like Dr. Bernard Gassaway did it when when he turned around Boys and Girls High School.
Exactly.
When he made that big switch.
The parents are engaging. The children are engaging. I was there the first day of school. Everybody had their uniforms on. And he's just changing the whole policy, raising the math
and creating a different climate. We're going to continue talking about this. This is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be right back.
school is just like from 9 to 3. You have to start at 7 o'clock in the morning till like 7, 8 o'clock at night, because what happens when the child leaves the school?
Greg, do we have video camera surveillance in our schools as people are coming in, going out, the perimeters?
Not all schools have video cameras, and not all schools have door alarms. I remember a few years ago there was a Avante. He disappeared, and they were looking for him. They finally found him. They were supposed to have door alarms on every door. I don't know if they got around to do that yet, but we don't have those kinds of I would say technology. That technology is not available to us.
But wouldn't that be an asset to one of your school safety agents at the front door if they can see on video screens like you do in every a lot of public buildings that you go into, a lot of government buildings where they can check and see, okay, here's the back, here's the front, here's what, there's a group coming up hanging out or whatever.
And there are children that are special needs children that should be watched, and there are children who run out of the schools, and all of those things can help prevent a child from wandering the streets that should not be wandering the streets.
But and also you can see get an idea what's going on too.
Have an idea what's going on, correct.
Shakima, in terms of the safety concerns for a 5th grader, give us a picture of what that's like.
Well, those incidents where the alarms are not on the doors, kids are able to walk out, people are able to walk in, security not being as uptight as they should, and, following the protocol of making sure everybody's signed in and identified no matter how many times a person comes in the building. You never really know who's who, or, in a situation, God forbid, someone comes in and something happens, you being able to reference back to, oh, well, this was so-and-so that came in. But sometimes, you see a person every day and you just assume that, oh, that's fine, there's nothing going on, but it's still not taking that precaution to make sure that at all times, this is my protocol, I'm supposed to identify you, I'm supposed to, or if we are in the school with a detector, or we have a policy where there's no, beverages, or, past this point to enforce it. Because just to prevent those, just in case, stuff can happen. There's no security that anybody's opted out. Even with, a lot of awareness of the schools, these incidents of shooting happen in more Caucasian neighborhoods, it can happen in our communities.
Right. Well, I mean, the guns are everywhere, right. So it's not.
We're not
people can
out,
get.
So just taking the precaution of an awareness of protocol. If there's a safety protocol, enforce it. Starting from the foundation of faculty, because then the students are respected. Sometimes also, students are not. Faculty is not enforcing something, so the students don't either.
Right, and that's it. Senator Hamilton, in terms of the, in terms of how out of date the schools are, and we always keep hearing about money, but there's a lot of money being spent per student, according to what we're told in the media here in the New York City school system.
The highest in the country. And what we're doing now with the campus in Brownsville, Flatbush, and Crown Heights, we're integrating the community-based organizations together. There has to be integration in the community-based organizations with the school safety agents who are doing a great job, with the teachers, with the social workers. There's no communication. So if a child has an issue, there should be like a monthly meeting. Which child is at need? Which children are at need? Do we have a gang problem? How do we resolve the gang problem? How do we get these kids, maybe playing basketball, in the evening, or having chess clubs, doing play therapy? So no one's taking the time out to say school is just like from 9 to 3. You have to start at 7 o'clock in the morning till like 7, 8 o'clock at night. Because what happens when the child leaves the school?
Right. They're right there on the streets.
They're right there on the streets. And if there's something adverse on the street, or there's something negative that they're learning on the street, they're going to bring it back to school in the morning.
In terms of the money thing, Greg, if we have to spend the most money per student, why don't we have video cameras? I mean, come on.
Well, we got to look at how you're spending the money. It doesn't mean because we're spending the most money, we're spending it the right way.
Right.
If we have that, we're spending that money, there should be an assessment on what we really need.
Right.
Maybe need to reallocate dollars elsewhere.
It's the cost. It's the cost. A lot of times we have cameras we're going to put in the schools, but the cost to put them in, so it's just too high. It's too much.
Right.
So we have to put the cameras outside the school. But once it's on school property, the cost to put them in, to install them,
that changes
the narrative on what we can do. So it's the cost factor to put them in the schools. It's easy to put in a metal detector, but you need video cameras in the school to monitor the children. I'd rather have video cameras than metal detectors in the school to monitor what's going on and have a record of what's going on. So if a fight breaks out, you can it's right there. You can see who started the fight. fight, how it, and who initiated it, and that's evidence for you. Without that video camera, it's really he say, she say on the scene.
When you see the weapons, the many weapons that you confiscate, that the school safety agents confiscate, are the students bringing them? Would you say more of them are bringing them to school to protect themselves or to defend themselves in case they need to, or are they bringing them to school because they're involved in some kind of criminal activity or gang activity?
I would say a little bit of both, but I'm unsure because I don't think they keep those statistics. But chances are, if someone else brings something to school, you're going to bring it to school to protect yourself also. And then you have an epidemic of weapons coming into the schools.
Yeah, it escalates, yeah.
Yep, it escalates. We need to identify the troublemakers. And we need to identify the children who are being bullied and take appropriate action with both situations. So,
Senator Hamilton, wouldn't the detectors help with that? If, let everybody know, hey, nobody in the school really is a safe haven?
It does help in a way. I'd rather have the video cameras rather than the metal detectors. And we know which kids have issues in certain families. When I was school board president, we knew certain families, the mother might have been doing drugs, the father might have had a mental issue.
Bad situation.
It's a bad situation. ACS is on the scene. So there are indicators that prompt us to know which families or which children may have issues. If solid families, they're engaged with their child's life. But it's the children who are not doing well in school. We have to address that. Say, hey, why aren't you doing well? And talk to the teachers and say, talk to the parents. Let's sit them down. No one's taking. My mother and father separated, and I started fighting in school, and I got suspended. No one asked me, is everything okay with you? Just a simple, interaction. How are you? Is everything okay? Why did this happen? Can you talk to me?
Right.
And the child will open up if they feel someone is genuinely, concerned about their well-being.
Right, and really listening.
And really listening.
What about that, Shakima?
Yeah, those reports are very important. There's a fine line because sometimes this can be a conflict of interest, with an adult, being too close to a child and things like that. But that's something that also needs to be just assessed, a lot better, and having certain people just placed, like, males coming from, the elite schools, and, just assessing the needs of the school, because each school has different needs. And also, as far as, kids coming from a home with both parents and a home with not. At the end of the day, kids also face with peer pressure. So sometimes a child can come from the best homes and still be subjected to the same stuff
That's true
as a
too.
child that, comes from, a projects or, less economical household.
Right, and I don't think that's just. I have to say too, because to me it's not just about the money, and it's not because you have many high achievers who have come from very difficult circumstances, and many that I've interviewed and know, and a lot of times it's because there's been one adult, even though maybe the parents, the father was not in the picture, or the mother had health issues or emotional issues or substance issues, but there was one adult that was in that child's life that helped that, that encouraged that kid, that looked out for that kid, and having this. So you're saying a combination of this. If we have people that are in place for that,
definitely. It's a certain culture. I never understood it, where if someone tries to take advantage of you, you have to be a man and fight back, or don't let them punk you out.
In the street culture,
it's the street culture. You can't let them punk you out. So you have to, you get your guys and you fight. Whereas in other neighborhoods, the conflict resolution is different.
Right.
Because if your parents have money, what are you fighting for anybody?
Right.
Whereas when you don't have certain things. I remember sometime my mother said, go to school and you better bring back this nice pen I bought you. And it was a calculator. And so someone stole my calculator. Another guy had his calculator stolen, and he stole somebody else's calculator because his parents said, make sure you bring this calculator I bought for you home. So it's the mindset of some parents in certain communities say, hey, if somebody takes something from you, you better get it back.
I want to thank all of you for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Senator Jesse Hamilton, great to have you with us.
Yes.
Shakima Davis, great to have you.
You're welcome.
Gregory Floyd, thanks for being with us again. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.